Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our review show as we're looking back at Armagh's 2-point defeat to Monaghan in the Ulster semi-final at the weekend. Joining us to do so is Paddy Savage and Jim McCorry. And men, we're going to look back at the game, and I suppose to start off, a gutting loss, a game that is hard to describe, a classic for neutrals, probably from an Armagh point of view, absolutely heartbreaking. Jim, I suppose to start, were you ever involved in a game or a team that scored 221 and didn't win the game?
Yeah, well, I suppose, Sean, first thing to say, in the situation that it was on Saturday, with the news that Monaghan had, it puts things into perspective, really, devastating as a football match was. There was a lot more devastation in Monaghan, and I know everybody paid their respects, and I thought Kieran McGeeney was very, very good in paying his respects afterwards as well. But in terms of the game itself, as I say, devastating. Have I been involved in games where 21 2 years ago against Cavan? We remember the same. We were leading going in towards the end. We went to replay. We're leading going into the end again and lost that one. So I've been involved in a few games like that. And even you take the Roscommon game of 3 years back now, the qualifier game, maybe qualifier 3 or qualifier 4 game. Where we shut the lights out in the first half. Merlin was on fire. I think we were like 95% return rate. And then the second half, a couple of goals, Andy Smith, and the game's turned on it. So I've been on the side of those, and they taste as bad in the mouth as losing by a point in the last minute of a game. That's close the whole way through. But I have to say, hard as it is, there was an awful lot of positives from that game as well. That I thought it was admirable that they turned around such a deficit and came back so strong, to try and win that game in conditions like, let's face it, it was like, I think we were warmer than, the Balearics or the Canary Islands, and the guys playing that type of heat at that pace, it was commendable for all involved.
And Paddy, I know you were at the game, and Jim's talking about how good of a day it was. It was a throwback to traditional Ulster Championship games. That was high scoring. The sun obviously made it. The good weather made it. It was an unbelievable game, Paddy, and I know from an Armagh point of view, it's hard to take, but for the neutral, it must have been unbelievable being in Park Esler and watching on that game. Armagh really just took the fight to Monaghan in that second half, and it was a classic.
Yeah, I hope there weren't too many neutrals in Park Esler, because there was plenty of Armagh supporters who were disappointed. That we only had the attendance we had, but unfortunately, we're not going to be one of the 18,000 going to Croke Park, it seems, for the final. Look, it was in terms of football, and even just reflecting on the last 18 months or so, it was a life affirming experience again. To be back at a game, such a good game. There was enough people in the ground that it created an atmosphere. The sun was shining. And the world felt great. Felt particularly great when we scored those couple of goals with 2 or 3 minutes to go in normal time, and it looked like it was going to be one of those days you'll always remember as an Armagh supporter, and that we would taken that step and that first final for 12 years, but it wasn't to be. But look, I just think it's worth obviously adding to Jim's point on the tragic circumstances for Monaghan, which is just a heartbreaking incident. And I think then the other thing we should be doing is thanking both teams, for the effort they put into that game. It was such a thriller, and they just served up so much entertainment. And to be fair, this Armagh team's presented us an awful lot of good times in entertainment this year. It has been. It's been our best season for quite some time, but it would have been just great to put the cherry on the top and get to that Ulster final. But look, as football, and as we find out this weekend, there's as I always the way I always put it, when I'm talking about football, is there's things that are actually important in life, and there's things that aren't important. And of the things that aren't really important, football is the most important. But you have to know the difference between the two.
And Jim, I suppose the big talking point was the 4 goals, and we'll have to discuss them. I suppose Armagh I felt we're doing well when they were going forward. The Rain and Rory and the forwards are doing really well. I don't think we had a wide for maybe the first 15 or 20 minutes. But defensively, we seem to not play with a sweeper, or we know Armagh like to play without a designated sweeper. It's sort of last man back. Maybe will they try and that, Jim? And Monaghan just knew that was going to happen and moved the ball quick before Armagh get set up. And then the 4 goals per Shane McGill, I know it was his debut game. There was very little he could do about the 4 of them. They were all sort of one-on-ones. What was your takeaway from the 4 goals, Jim?
Well, one thing I would say, a lot of people talking about young Shea in goals, and I suppose the one thing, you need to ask, what would Monaghan be like if Bagan hadn't been playing? What would be Tyrone? What would Tyrone be like if Morgan hadn't been playing? Their top player, and Blaine took a lot of stick over this last couple of. Even when I was there, some of the abuse he would get, and he's a totally dedicated goalkeeper. I mean, his kickouts has improved dramatically. He's done about 15 yards of distance on his kicks. He's accurate. He's a good communicator, defensively organised in defence. He's playing more keeper sweeper type role as well. So to lose a player like that so late as well. It's obviously going to have an impact. And then to put in, a young fella, I have to say, for instance, Shea, he was there at the start whenever I was there and has great potential for the future on. I don't think he was to blame, except, obviously he had a bad kick out for the second goal. But if you look at Began, for example, look at the one bounced over his head that cleared off the line. If that had went in, there's more talk about that, and Armagh one, that would have been about the bad kick out on it. But the reason I'm saying I wouldn't blame Shea as much on it, and the reason, I'm not going to say that the backs weren't at fault, but the ball came in very, very easy. If Armagh's tactic was not to have a +1 back, or that it developed that there wasn't a +1 back, you're going to have to put pressure on the kicker outfield to stop that ball getting in, number one. But number two, you don't let a kicker put a ball in or fist a ball in and follow through and take his return. And particularly Hughes' goal was very disappointing. I know that probably would have really angered Kieran McGinney, that a player was able to put a ball in so easily, run through uncontested, and be able to put the ball in the back of the net. So there's a number of aspects to it. If you are going to not have a +1 back, you really want to make sure that ball can't be put in easy, and you really do put pressure on the ball carrier and push up on him. But secondly, a follower, a man is always tagged. If he follows the pass, you must stay on that man and track him the whole way through. And that was very, very disappointing on it. So, I don't think we can blame Shea on it. I certainly think it was a big, big factor in the game that we hadn't got Blaine and his experience. But, they made the changes whenever Forker came in. You could argue, well, that change that had been made earlier and Forker not have been brought in. But Forker was coming back from a very serious injury, and even to have him available at all, the medical team must have been working really, really hard. It was a very, very serious injury. And if the medical team say, there's 30 minutes in a player, there's 40 minutes in a player, a manager has to abide by that, because if you go beyond that and that breaks down, he's out even longer or he has more permanent damage, it's a risk to take on. So obviously they were listening to what the medical people had said. I know probably Forker, and knowing Forker would be saying, I'm good to go, put me in from the start. He wouldn't care if his leg was broken, he would still probably go in and play. That's the type of him. But you've seen the impact he had when he came in. No more goals, McCorry clamped up, organisation, that defence, the physicality brought in throughout, communication so much better. So if you had Forker there from the start, and you had a Paddy Burns available as well from the start, he's probably one of Armagh's best man markers. And he's seen Paddy's impact in the last game when he was playing, even going through for that last mark. Paddy was a massive loss to him as well. So this year was a big year for Kieran, and he got from midfield up all available, except maybe for Aidan Nugent. So he had a full deck to pick from. But defensively, obviously, there were big impacts, losing key men. Kennedy was lost earlier on in the year. Morgan was lost for a while too, so there was big impacts in that. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but, that's sometimes, games get away from you like that and you lose it completely and you never get it back. The big, big positive and the big talking point that we're going to come on to is how they fought back and brought that to within a victory, 2-point victory that they narrowly lost in the end. Yeah,
it's just on Jim's point there, Sean, it really was a double whammy, because to miss Blaine Hughes and Aidan Forker, that's so much sort of leadership and communication out of your defence, because we all know now that the role of the goalkeeper, it's not just the shots stopping, it's the kick out, but it's also the communication, because the goalkeeper is looking at the defence the whole time and shouting and talking. and then suddenly you put, you lose that, you lose all of that, and you lose Aidan Falker, who's the captain of the team, the leader in the defence. That's an awful lot of communication that just wouldn't have been there. I know maybe it should have been anyway, but when you take out those two big personalities out of your defensive unit, that's going to have a big impact. And obviously, what I thought also, I mean, I really felt for Shane McGill, because in normal circumstances, before the game, because in normal circumstances, you join a county panel, and I think he was under 20s last year, wasn't he? And then you'd have a couple of McKenna Cup games, we playing challenge matches, you'd be getting to know it. Whereas just the way we were with COVID, he was been thrown in. This was his inter-county debut. Also, arguably the biggest game Armagh had for the guts of a decade. So I actually thought, yeah, Jim said he made a mistake, surely for the goal. But if you look at the first goal Armagh got, it was his brilliant kick out that got the goal. So I thought overall he could be proud of himself for the way he dealt with that on Saturday, which would not have been easy.
Yeah, Shea was actually the under-20 keeper this year as well. He was nets in, what was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago in the first round of the Ulster Championship for Armagh. We'll get on to his impact for the goal, because we'll have to talk about that turbo goal. It was probably the best move we're going to see this year. But I just want to keep on Aidan Falker here, because Paddy, we talked about how massive a miss he was for whatever that first 20-25 minutes, but he did eventually come in, and his impact was unbelievable. And a few people speaking to me over the weekend, and it's a fair comparison. He's our Michael Murphy, like he's our leader, and you've seen the impact Michael Murphy had last week against Donegal, or against Derry, sorry, and then the loss of him, what it had against Tyrone. He's that big to us, isn't he, Paddy? He's that important to us, that he's our leader, and he's such an important player to us.
Yeah, he's the most important player I feel that Armagh have, and the reason for that is we do have we have some brilliant forward. Reno Neal is outstanding. We all know that, but we probably have more options in the forward line. And I always feel that if we're missing one of our forwards with somebody else coming in, but that when we're missing Aidan in defence there, we suffer. And as I said, I do think losing Aidan and playing at the same time just really impacted our defence. So yeah, look, it was just unfortunate. Look, injuries happen this year in particular. There seems to have been so many injuries at every level of the game, just with boys having had such an unusual year. Look, these are the not risks you take, but that's the it's always you're trying to, as a manager, trying to balance up. What's the right thing to do here? If you start somebody and they come on after 10 minutes and settle the whole team, that's the last thing you want. So, just unfortunately, Monaghan got those goals. But look, you see on them as well. The 4 goals that the Monaghan conceded, and Jim had said about the defenders. Look, it reminded me of the Donegal game. Sean, I remember Barry O'Hagan had said in one of the podcasts as well about the runners coming from the Donegal defence, and that was why. And I know, Jim, you've really emphasised to us that that wasn't a game where Armagh were blown out of the. It was a game where Armagh didn't perform for 10-15 minutes. And yeah, look, you can see. I mean, if you look at those 2 of those goals, okay, one's a mistake, bad kick out. That happens, but both the Hughes one and the first or the second one is the wing half back, number 7 for Monaghan, attacking from deep. So like, it's not just the defenders. Were people tracking those bursts forward from Monaghan, and it's, look, you win as a team and you lose as a team, and just unfortunately over the balance of the 75 minutes on Saturday, we lost as a team.
And Jim, just on the Aidan Falker one, I know you said that he's probably telling Kieran McGeeney that he's fit to go and ready to play. The medical team's maybe telling Kieran McGeeney something different. How do you handle that as a manager? That you're unsure what to do, because if you start him, he could maybe have to come off after 20 minutes injured, and it has a bad impact on the team. But when you bring him in, it could have the impact he did have on Saturday, when he shored up that defence and really steadied the ship. So I suppose, how would a manager go about dealing with that?
Yeah, and Aidan's case, because he's such a key player, as you said earlier, he's a leader, not just in that defence, but in the team overall, great communicator. He's the captain within that team as well as the captain that's there. And I have no doubt he would be telling Kieran McGeeney he's fit to go for the full time. And as I said before about Forker, the leg was broke. He would still be saying he's okay to play. He's that type of a player, and he wants to play in any position. You go in the goals and play for you. He's that type of player on it. But Kieran would have to weigh up what the medical team are saying in terms of the length of time that he has and how best to use that for the team and how best for the player as well, because you want to make the injury worse long term for the player. That's a career-threatening injury, or he could create any health issues for him. Kieran would have to weigh all that up and say, well, look, do I want him to come on towards the end of the game and help close out a game or help us to win a game? Do I start him and try and build up a lead and get the confidence, and then we continue to win, and then we take him off with another player to come in? And then the risk, as you say, is you start him in the game and he breaks down. Maybe you have 45 minutes in him, and he breaks down after 15 minutes and he comes off, and you've wasted a sub as well on that. So you have all those things to weigh up, and you decide what's best for the team overall. In this case, Kieran rightly held off. The maximum time that he was going to have him was for probably just a half, because you can see maybe he put him on, before half time. Maybe when he had a half in him, when he put him in, it changed the dynamic of the game completely. Defensively, it was shored up. Communication was good. The organisation was good. Balls going through were cut out either by him or by other players. He tightened up completely on his player. Other players were tighter, so it was better right throughout defensively on it. And that's probably what they missed in that opening 30 minutes. They hadn't got that leadership as well as his skill and his strength and his pace and direction that he gives, that leadership to actually sort them out when they were, because you look to the side and people can say, why didn't they make changes earlier? Why didn't they swap players over, during that opening period on it? But a lot of the time, players themselves self-sort the likes of that. I'm sure they didn't send them out to say to them, now let's leave a big gap between our full back line and our half back line midfield as we push up. Let's make sure we don't sort of track runners after they pass the ball in, truck and trailer, just let them run through on it. They have recovered all those things on it, but there was a big sort of lapse in concentration, particularly for two of them. And even when they were arguing with the referee over one of the balls and they broke away down the right wing, the ball was played in, they got a goal from that as well. So I would say that further out the field was the greater difficulty, and without Forker inside, it exacerbated the problem really for them.
And Paddy, that last quarter, I actually didn't realise at the time we were still 7 points down at the water break. I thought it was a lot closer than that, given how Armagh had performed in the second half. But that last quarter, the substitutions really made a big impact. Obviously, we'll talk about Turbo and PK, the two goal scorers. Conor O'Neill done really well when he came on. Ross McQuillan, they both got points, and obviously we've mentioned Aidan Forker. But the big man was Rian O'Neill. He was outstanding the other day, as you said earlier on. And it's very rare that you end up on the losing team and still pick up the Man of the Match award. So a big compliment to him how good he was. He was unbelievable, wasn't he? But he carried the fight to Monaghan all day long, and he really drove Armagh back into the game.
Yeah, like he was outstanding. But sure, look, he's been outstanding now so many. It seems like it's, I don't know what age is he still, maybe 20, 22, 23. It seems like he's been about forever, and hopefully he's about for an awful long time to come. He's brilliant. He's one of the best forwards in Ireland. There's sometimes when somebody's that good, it's actually really easy to describe them because you know exactly where they fit in. But it's that range too of positions that he can play, that he's really comfortable around midfield. You can play him in close to the square. You can play him in the half forward line. He is a versatile player, and look, the more quality players you have, the better. Because if other teams try to focus on stopping rain, you've got Soupy Campbell, etc. We're not that is a great thing about our forward line of so many different players that can score. It's an interesting point you raised too, Sean, on the that it was all done in the last quarter. But it's funny, even at half time, and I was genuinely saying this to people, I never felt we were out of that game. I mean, obviously we had a massive issue conceding goals, and if we conceded another couple of goals, we'd never got back into it. But once we stopped that, I never, even when Monaghan were 7-8 points ahead, you never got the impression this is a much better team thumping another. Just never felt like that. Always felt like we were well in the game, and that if we plugged away, the goal chances would come. I know, yeah, you mentioned the subs there, yeah, the two lads that got the goals, and then I thought Ross, not to be biased towards my own club, man, but I just thought it was a perfect game for us because, you know, as people, he'd come on. I think his first major impact for Armagh being back in against Clare in the qualifiers 2 or 3 seasons back. Very similar day, really, really warm, and coming on when the game was stretched, and just the pace that he has is you know, it's such a weapon in those circumstances. So yeah, no, look, I know we left it late to come back into the game, but I thought we were competitive throughout it, you know, and that you know, obviously Monaghan were 7 or 8 points ahead, and it was those 7 or 8 points that made the difference in the end. But it never felt like that. It genuinely never felt like we were out of contention in that match.
I suppose it was the goal that really brought us back into it. And as Paddy said, I would agree with that. I never really felt, even when the goals were going in, Armagh was still fit. Like, I think it was 14 points in the first half. Like, they were still in the game, and they were still plugging away, and they were still playing well going forward. So I felt if they could close the gap at the back, that they had enough firepower to really drive on and sort of close that gap. And they did. And that the first goal is such a move. Like, when we were talking about Shane McGill, he had a massive part to play in it, and that big kick out to Rian O'Neill was such a great tactic to bring us back into the game. Obviously, Shay's kick out reaches nearly the 445. Rian up in the air like a salmon, catches it. Unbelievable catch, turn straight into the full forward line, and Turbo's bravery, because he knew he was going to get clobbered by Bagan. Any good goalkeeper is going to come out on ball man and all, and unfortunately for Bagan, he only got the man. He didn't get the ball. But Jim, talk us through that goal. It's a coach's dream, I'm sure, because that's a tactic that they've obviously worked on. That big kick out to Rian O'Neill, and for it to work so well, it was brilliant to see it coming off.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, if you watch all teams, including Armagh with kickouts, you know, you have your ones to the wing, and obviously the ones to the wing that was intercepted, you know, led to the goal at the start. You know, you would be questioning why, you know, he wasn't going along the whole game on it, but obviously second half you could see the direct kick, and what he had 29 kickouts and 24 were won. You know, so I mean, that's a very high success rate for a young fella for kickouts as well. But you're right, the extra distance he gives you, you know, they're fantastic. And Rian is a super target man for the ball over the top coming out. As Paddy rightly says, he can play in midfield, he can play centre half forward, he can play inside as your target man. But the one thing about Rian, just before I even talk about the goal, I mean, we had seen an awful lot from Rian at the start. You know, my first year wasn't come in the second year. And you could see, I mean, when Nicholas were talking to the fellow, I mean, he's 6'2", 6'3", you know, and he's a big frame. He got even bigger and stronger. But what we were trying to get out of him for those couple of years whenever I was there as well, and what Kieran was trying to do was to use that power and that pace, because he got the technical skills and to try and listen to how to open up defences. And obviously they've got more out of him this year doing that, because you could see the bits that he was doing for us, he did for the whole game, where he uses that strength and pace and turns in and takes the scores, and really, you know, taking no nonsense from anybody. Like Paddy and yourself, I mean, I wasn't concerned, because I was concerned, obviously, at the goals and the goals being so easily scored against us on it. But our scores were taken very, very well in that opening period as well. If you take it, Sean, like you said about the 14 points, we were taking scores at ease and opening them up very, very easy. I know one of the comments was made, you know, from some of the pundits on it, that Monaghan were giving up the points because they didn't want Armagh to get the goals. It's the biggest load of rubbish you ever heard on it. I mean, Armagh were just good at opening it up and good at taking their scores. I mean, missed some easy ones. You remember Greg's one coming through, you know, 20 metres out, could have put over. Rian missed another one as well. So there was good opportunities, O'Sheen as well, to even go even further on that. But they had a really high scoring rate, 68% scoring rate, you know, which was good. Monaghan at 70%. But with Rian, what you get, you know, that strength and pace, that he can take a score, but he can put a cross-field ball in, he put a direct ball in, and he hammered that ball through on it. And in fairness to Turbo, I mean, he knew he was going to get done, but he went for it on it. And in fairness, and you can blame the goalkeeper for not being able to take the man and the ball on it. But I mean, I was very concerned about it, because I thought he actually got him in the head as well. I know he held his side, but that was very, very brave. And to get up and to play on and score 1-1. In fairness, what we should say, and people will criticise the management, you know, for that opening 30 minutes and defensive setup and why they didn't make changes and why all these things happened, which they weren't sent out to do. But they got everything right. The changes that they made, there was 2-3 scored from the subs coming on. Forker closed that defence up, shored the whole thing up on it, and they came back. So I think the management deserve a lot of credit for the changes that they made and when they made them. because it really did give them the opportunity to bring it back in and to show the skills. Probably the one concern I would have would be that maybe Rian's performance was so dominant that other forwards you didn't see him as much. But if you actually analyse it from a coaching point of view, I mean, Grugan was fantastic as well. Subi wasn't as effective, but his work rate for the team, chasing back, working hard. Ultimately, for me, that opening period with the goals, yes, was a problem. But the turnovers at the end of the game was the big factor for me, Sean, that they give the ball away, 5 times in that last 7-8 minutes. And for the majority of those to lead the scores, and then the 2 of them that led to the 2 frees and the score at the end was the killer, because the craft of McManus, to draw the frees, whether they were frees or not, people will debate that, ad infinitum on it, but the bottom line was they were frees. And somebody with the temperament and experience of the skill of McManus to put those over, it took an awful lot of courage to do that as well, so he deserves a lot of credit for it. But the turnovers were the key again, like not closing the man down for the goals, like not following the runner going through for the score. It was the same these ones need to, because Monaghan were out on their feet at that stage. They weren't able to track back with players free. We just got the ball forward, run intercepted. They had more scores than the one. They ruled that game out fairly easily in the end.
And then turnovers, Jim, would you put that down to, was there nerves, maybe we've been an experience at times in that final 5 or 10 minutes, that when Armagh were on top, maybe they couldn't believe that they were in front at that stage, having conceded 4 goals. But was there a bit of nerves, maybe, that you're in that position, you have to push on, and they just didn't do that?
Turnovers in the game overall that Armagh had, and 12 that Monaghan had in the game. And I don't really worry so much about the total number of turnovers, but it's key turnovers that will actually lead to scores. And probably, if you look at, Subi's too, probably he'll feel very bad about those, because those were key times when they came back up and got scores from them on. But they were preventable. I can understand turnovers as well when you're getting the rib spotted off, when you're trying to get a pass off, or you're getting pressure when you're trying to kick a ball in and it's kicked away. If it's kicked in deep and it's turned over deep, that gives you time to set up. But when they're lost in round the midfield or in your own half, and it creates the counter attack, those are the ones you'd be more concerned about on it. So for me, it's, is it nerves? Is it the sweltering heat and towards the end of the game? All those different factors, come into it on it. But the bottom line is, a situation like that, if you're going to be turned over, turn it over and say their 20-metre line and give yourself time to try and win that ball back or set up defensively. And that was the big problem with those ones that were in the wrong area, and they led the scores for us.
And Paddy, on the topic of turnovers, Armagh got a huge turnover for the second goal. Rory Grugan and Johnny Ogue forced the Monaghan man over the line, and it was great work rate by the 2 men to chase that down, chase a lost cause, and eventually get the reward with the sidelines. Rory takes it quick, finds Tiernan Kelly, and Kelly showed so much composure and class till I think he done with 2 men and then slotted home with his left foot. It was a great goal, Paddy, from start to finish.
Oh yeah, and I suppose it's a sort of goal that it really lifts the team, when you get those types of turnovers, and then when you get the reward from them, because it would really, well, obviously a goal at any stage will lift the team, particularly the way the game was at that stage. But it does. Teams love the tackling and winning the ball back and then getting a score from it, because you feel that it's really inspirational. You feel the hard work's the hard work has really paid off. So look, we'll probably talk a little about it later on. But there's so many positives for Armagh to take from this year. Breaking through, that's definitely one of them. Don't think he was start of the year, he'd been very much seen as a young prospect, but now he's emerging as an important at this stage man to bring off the bench. But I'm sure over the next couple of years he'll be hoping to get himself onto the starting 15 more and more.
Yeah, and Paddy, like you talked about, Turbo obviously scored 1-1 with men. Tiernan Kelly was the same. I want to talk about the huge scores that Armagh got on the huge moments in the game, because there was that last 10 minutes or so, being a supporter in the ground, it just felt like it was Armagh's day. They got them 2 goals. They got them massive points. Andrew Murnan, Ross, and Oisin O'Neill kicked huge scores. Then in the defence, you had Andrew's block that maybe he wouldn't be accustomed to getting that far back to make that block. And you had Ryan O'Neill's big tackle on Ryan Wiley. It all pointed to Armagh's day, didn't it, Paddy? It really felt like that in the stadium, that everything that was going well for Armagh, it was just pointing to an Armagh victory.
Yeah, definitely. Or at the very, very least, that it would end up in extra time. You certainly didn't feel like Armagh would end up losing it in normal time. But look, Jim discussed it. There was, I do think the excitement, the passion, the tension of late in the game and all in that heat, brains were probably a wee bit fried. But I think, look, the disappointing thing is just that we didn't execute just 2 or 3 more good passes, more sensible decisions later on, and we would have won the game. I mean, there was one that etched in my head. The ball just dropped. It was being played to Ross McCullen, and it just dropped a bit short. His fist pass just went short. Whereas Ross had 30 yards of space in front of him, we would have, at the very least, he'd scored a point, if not a goal, because there was one-on-one down the field, But just to say the fist pass went short, if it had been kicked another 5 meters, Armagh probably win. But look, those things happen, and it's maybe it's not. You go back, you can look at all these different incidents, and when you lose a game like that, there'll always be those regrets. Probably particularly the equalising free. I thought there was question marks over both of them as well. It should have been frees, but I haven't seen the back, to be fair. When I was a long way. I was in the terrace on the other side of the pitch, but particularly I think more the fact that Monaghan had sort of almost dropped the ball and they were sort of backs to goal. And that's when you have to be so careful. It's one thing fouling a player who's about to take a shot that's probably going to score, because you're not risking that much. When somebody, Monaghan, I think, at their backs to goal, and trying to overturn the ball, and they weren't going to score from there as such. There's an awful lot of work to do, but obviously when you give away the free, even if the free was sort of quite, don't want to say bought, but earned. Earned. Anyway, I'll not get you into trouble, Sean, by talking to the referee too much more. But
I will, Paddy. I will.
Yeah. Look, it was disappointing, but there was such a I don't like this because I know I've been involved in team. Nobody wants to lose a class. It's zero consolation that was an amazing game. I know that's, but it was, and just from from a supporters, leaving Uri there yesterday, just from a supporters aspect, or Saturday, you felt proud of the team. You felt that, look, that team gave us everything they had, and they didn't win. Of course, you were disappointed, and they would have been completely devastated. But you had to have an element of pride in the performance that they put in.
Yeah, and Jim, we talked about this, Paddy spoke about McManus there. It was clear Monaghan were looking for McManus. It was the same with McBurdy against Derry. James Morgan done well on McManus. I know he got that early goal. But they were looking for McManus, and he knew when he got it, if he wasn't going to score, he was going to win a free and score it. So it's just them key moments, isn't it? Like that, them clutch players, they always step up. On McManus, once he got the frees, you never had a doubt that he was going to score them.
Yeah, and in fairness, the Morgie, Morgie's been a player who's been chastised for the amount of frees that he gives away in games. And I think over this last 2 years, he's really improved in that. He's a lot more controlling the tackle, controlling the player. I thought McManus was quiet for the majority of the game due to the work that Morgie was doing on him. But I mean, the goal that he took was fantastic. The double dummy and slotted home. You expect that from McManus. Free taking. He's a 95% man with free kicks, isn't he? So he's always going to get those. And I mean, he would be a go-to man. Like Rian was the go-to man for Armagh in that second period through kickouts and the direct ball and the scores in the opening 20 minutes. He's their go-to man in terms of the experience as well to try and buy a free if it was, but in fairness, Paddy gets to the point as well that when you go in behind a player and you put any pressure on a player from behind, and he goes down, and verbally referee will give those frees, and verbally they're soft. But a player should know, and at that stage, the fact that his back was to the goals and he can play it out, and we had a nose, and that'll be annoying that they're soft as they may well be, they still could have been prevented. The other one I thought was even softer on it, but he played for them and he put them over, and that's the important thing from Monaghan's point of view. But it is disappointing that, for a game that, we had the 2-point lead on it. The free kicks were one thing, but as I said earlier, the turnovers that allowed the ball to get back in again when Monaghan were right on their feet. They couldn't even put a tackle in. They couldn't get back. We were winning ball at ease further out. They couldn't get the ball out of the defence. They actually turned away back into the defence at that stage as well. And the scores came from them. And even the last score that came, again, from a turnover ball going back up, it was the way the ball was given away, which was the key. But the positive thing for us was, in that first half, even if those goals went in, as you said, 14 scores, and probably could have come in with maybe 17 score at half time. We scored 217 from play. That's fantastic scoring. 19 scores from play in those conditions in an Ulster semi-final. Monaghan 410 from play, so we scored more from play than them. And the reasons that we lost are fairly glaring and are correctable. And with a team that as strong as we are, when you lose players of the quality of Forker, as we said, and only able to bring in, on a Paddy Burns, that's always going to be something that's going to maybe work against you on it. But the work that's done this year, I was very, very proud of the work they did this year in Division 1 staying in. They probably should have been in, the semi-final for the league itself rather than a playoff. So really, really good league performance on it. Organised themselves well against Antrim. In the second half when Antrim were playing really at ease in that first half against them all. So obviously you've seen what the Massman did at half-time in that game. You've seen what they did at half-time in this game as well and the way it was turned around. So there are a lot of positives from that particular game, disappointing as it is.
And Jim, we'll just finish on that. Obviously, you touched on how disappointing it is and absolutely heartbreaking for Armagh that they didn't get a result. But there's been huge progress made this year. We spoke last year about how important it was to get to Division 1. It was even more important this year to stay in Division 1. They did that. They were a couple of points shy of reaching a semi-final. Next year is going to bring them on even more. Fingers crossed, everything's back to normal. They'll be playing Dublin, they'll be playing Kerry, they'll be playing Mayo. So huge progress made this year, and hopefully a lot to look forward to next year and in the coming years.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I just hope that Paddy, you aren't saying that they did so well this year because I wasn't there. I mean, certainly I wouldn't. I know you aren't saying that on it, but I mean, there's been fantastic progress made this year, and obviously Kieran has a strong management team, and with the two Kierans working well with them, and it's important that they build on that next year, and they will. And I think you have Aidan Nugent coming back next year. You're able to have the defensive quality of Forker back in, but also to maybe try and unearth some. I mean, we've unearthed the Kellys and the Turbots of this world, and the Ross McQuillan back again. We just need to unearth maybe 3 of those in the defensive structure, and I think we'll be able to challenge quite a few teams. As you've seen, Kerry has done over this last 2 years. They were chastised for not having a good defensive structure or a better defensive player, and they've restructured this year and they're better. I think it's certainly something that Kieran has been looking out for this last couple of years, was to get more defensive players in there as well to bolster, the fantastic midfield and attacking options that he has. Hopefully that'll happen next year as well.
So just to finish up, man, I just want to say congratulations to the Armagh hurlers. They defeated Leitrim 7-25 to 121 at the weekend to reach the semi-final of the Nicky Rackard Cup. And the ladies as well, they're through to the Ireland quarter-final, having beaten Calvin 3-18 to 3-10. So congratulations to both them teams. And thanks very much, men, for coming on and talking us through how Armagh's game went against Monaghan at the weekend.
Thanks a million, Sean.
Cheers.